In the heart of a mountain is a fortress, the inmates of which are confined to 2 guards and 4 dogs. In his presence, which is my presence, there is not at night even a lighted lamp. All that is on earth hath been created for him, and all partake with delight of his benefits. And yet they are so veiled from him as to refuse him even a lamp. Be patient, O consolation of mine eyes, for verily God hath vowed to establish thy glory in every land, amongst all that dwell on earth. Every stone of that building, every stone of the road leading to it, I have with infinite tears and at tremendous cost raised and placed in position. In memory of those dark nights, Shoghi Effendi lit the shrine itself. But the Master spoke of the day when the whole of Mount Carmel, from top to bottom, will be submerged in a sea of light. That day has come. The arcs of light suggest 9 concentric circles emanating from the shrine of the Bab, revealing the shapes of 19 terraces. They are acclaimed in Israel as the 8th wonder of the world.
You notice the detail, you notice the beauty, the symmetry, and to me it was obviously that this is not human, this is divine, this is perfection. Every terrace is different. The gardens, it's just out of this world. I don't think you can describe it.
Just east of this axis is the majestic arc whose classically inspired buildings house the institutions of an emerging global religious community. Today, this is the heart of Mount Carmel. Carmel, the very name, resonates with the soul-stirring vibrations of an ancient chord. Revered from biblical antiquity as the nest of the prophets, a mountain of refuge and peace, a place where time seemed to stand still. So it was when Baha'u'llah first set foot on Mount Carmel on August 31, 1868, en route to his prison cell across the bay in the old fortress of Akka, in conditions so ominous that one of his despairing companions threw himself into the sea. Who could have imagined that the mountain of the Lord was about to waken from its ancient slumber, attracting anew the eyes of the world?
I don't think that any gardens, like these wonderful gardens, somebody can find over all the world. It's not only beauty, it's unique, it's harmonic, and when you are visiting these gardens, you have a wonderful feeling, a peaceful feeling, that you really believe that you are maybe in heaven, but you are only in the earth and you are in Haifa, Israel.
So what has happened on this mountain to turn her wild and thorny slopes into a garden paradise? It is a divine drama, beginning with Baha'u'llah's visits here and the revelation of the tablet of Carmel, setting forth the vision of the mountain's future grandeur. Abdul-Baha, at the behest of his father, brought the remains of the Bab from Persia and entombed them in this modest structure. The work was left to Shoghi Effendi, who over the 36 years of his ministry gave form to the vision for Carmel, acquiring land, erecting the superstructure of the shrine of the Bab, laying out in preliminary form both the Ark and terrace gardens, and constructing the first of the buildings on the Ark itself. With the election in 1963 of the Universal House of Justice, and the subsequent erection of its seat at the top of the great ark on Mount Carmel, the stage was set for the final act of this divine drama. This is our story. On August 31, 1987, exactly 119 years to the day after Baha'u'llah first set foot on Mount Carmel, the Universal House of Justice announced that the way is now open for the Baha'i world to erect the remaining buildings on the Ark and complete the 19 terraces of the Shrine of the Bab. Delegates to the 6th International Baha'i Convention in April of 1988 saw these models of the buildings on the Ark and a preliminary conceptual model of the terraces. They were awed by the grandeur and magnitude of the projects before them.
You can feel the bounties of Baha'u'llah every moment of it. This is the way you feel because you are a center of this assistance that always comes through the Baha'i friends mostly, all over the world.
Hossein Amanat, architect for the buildings on the Ark, assembled his team in Canada to work on the architectural designs for the Center for the Study of the Text, the Archives Extension, the International Teaching Center, and the International Baha'i Library. Fariborz Sahba, fresh from the completion of the widely acclaimed Lotus Temple, the Baha'i house of worship of the Indian subcontinent, was named architect of the terraces and project manager of the Mount Carmel Baha'i projects. He moved to Haifa to set up his office for the coordination of the projects. For 2 feverish years, the newly assembled project team worked to get necessary permits, negotiate contracts, and to figure out how to solve the staggeringly complex logistical problems, while Baha'is worldwide struggled to raise the $50 million required to launch the project. The hands of the cause of God, members of the Universal House of Justice, and counselor members of the International Teaching Center joined in the formal ceremonies marking the commencement of construction held on May 23, 1990. Large areas of old gardens had to be cleared before new construction could proceed. Ancient olive trees were saved by carefully removing them and temporarily transplanting them to the western end of the mountain. Years later, they would be returned to their places, adding their rich historic character and associations to the outer gardens of the lower terraces. Ornaments, lamp posts, and other fixtures were temporarily removed for preservation and restoration. The construction was divided into 7 major phases. Phase 1 began at the very heart of the mountain, with the detailed analysis of the long-term preservation requirements of the Shrine of the Bab and the main terrace upon which it stands. This terrace is fronted by a retaining wall originally built by the Guardian. Over the years, erosion had created dangerous cavities under the terrace. Hundreds of long anchors were embedded into the mountain bedrock, and tons of concrete injected into the cavities to provide permanent solidity. The original terrace was shorter on the eastern end, owing to the uneven contours of the mountain. In order to bring the required symmetry to this central terrace, a 13-meter-high building was constructed to support an eastern extension of the terrace. This invisible but spacious building serves as a primary storage and maintenance facility for the lower terraces, providing access to all of the critical areas. New stone facing, matching the Guardian's original selection, completed the renovation. Phase 2 commenced on June 17 with massive excavations that would take years to complete. A proper appreciation of the reasons for all this effort requires at the very least some understandings of the spirit animating the Baha'i administrative order, Shoghi Effendi's vision for the buildings on the Ark, the global institutions they would house, and the particular physical characteristics of the mountain. It all begins with reverence.
This ark is based on 4 graves, 3 graves that are very sacred to the Baha'is because they are the members of the family of Baha'u'llah, his wife and her daughter and her son, the brother of Abdul-Baha. And this became the focal point, these graves, which I think is so extraordinary, of the whole administrative development of the Baha'i faith at its world center.
The seat of the Universal House of Justice was designed to last at least 500 years and has been praised as the highest quality building to be constructed in Israel in modern times. The institution that takes counsel in its central chamber is created through the world's first truly global democratic election process. Founded upon universal participation by all the diverse kindreds and peoples of the earth, it is a unique process, completely free of the fractious clamor of partisan politics, carried out in a spirit of prayer, love, and dignity. While the seat was designed to accommodate the needs of an institution that will one day head a world community of vast proportions, the outer size of the building was kept to a modest scale out of respect and reverence for the shrine of the Bab. This set the tone for the remaining buildings on the Ark.
And these buildings have classic pavilions outside them, but in the basement they have lots of levels that are hidden under the ground, because the most important principle of the design here was that the beauty of the gardens and the dominance of the gardens would be always kept, and the buildings are really elements to decorate the gardens. They are pavilions in the gardens.
The design of these buildings was not determined solely by the aesthetic of reverence which shapes their outward form. The institutions housed in these buildings are destined to engage the great challenges concerning the future of mankind. They are the nucleus of an organic network of institutions united in serving the entire planet. Thus, despite their apparent size relative to that of the seat, the actual working floor space constructed for these new buildings is approximately 4 times greater than the seat of the Universal House of Justice. This was accomplished by means of massive excavations, extending as much as 9 stories deep into the mountainside.
We had to use state-of-the-art equipment to measure vibration, to be very careful about what is happening, to operate in very close proximity of these very delicate buildings, such as archive, shrine of greatest holy leaf. Sometimes we have excavated as close as 2 meters to these monuments.
Phase 2 of the project was the excavation of the Center for the Study of the Texts and the Archives extension, linked with the construction of terraces 5 through 9. The material excavated for the building was used to even out the contours of the terraces below the shrine. This 30-meter high retaining wall is the largest construction element in the entire project. For 2 years, powerful drills bored up to 22 meters into deep bedrock, setting rock anchors, securing the mountainside so that the buildings will be protected from the tremendous pressures of Carmel's shifting geological formations. The exhilarating echoes of the Second Baha'i World Congress, convened in New York City in November 1992 and connected to Mount Carmel by a live satellite link, were still fresh as work began on Phase 3. Creating the eastern cavity to cradle the International Teaching Center required a different approach due to the proximity of the access road to the seat of the Universal House of Justice. Work began on terraces 15 through 19 near the top of the mountain, with the bulk of the material from the excavation below being used to create the needed symmetry. Sculpting a mountainside is a challenging and difficult engineering task. The slopes are unforgiving, and any error is potentially disastrous.
There is no slope in Israel steepest like that with landscape. With olive trees, 300 years, standing like this, very straight on slope. I came to Itzik, and I told him, Itzik, I don't know how we can do this thing, but we will do it. With this heavy equipment, slopes like this, to catch big boulders like this, you know, Sometimes you're leaning, you're falling down. You raise your head to see somebody, you're falling down. And it was a challenge, and Baruch Hashem, we succeed.
By 1994, work had opened up the mountain to the fullest possible extent. Even the arc itself was disrupted as a service and pedestrian tunnel was constructed under the main path and stairs to connect all the buildings. With major construction stretching the full height of the mountain, no visitor to Haifa could fail to take notice of this mammoth undertaking by the Baha'i community. Israeli leaders found their way to the site, including Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, Foreign Minister Shimon Peres, and dignitaries from around the world. The Prime Minister signed documents for a new town planning scheme that not only protects the terraces, but reshapes the city in order to enhance their beauty and prestige. The plan calls for renovation of the entire length of Ben Gurion Avenue, from the port to the base of the terraces. Of particular interest is the renovation and preservation of the German Templar colony, situated along Ben Gurion Avenue at the base of the terraces.
German Templars arrived in 1868. This is the year that Baha'u'llah arrived here. So it's really, the restoration is done to the period of Baha'u'llah. And now we have the majestic Path of the King starting from the sea and reaching up to the top of the Mount Carmel.
By mid-1994, the intense construction engulfed the International Archives building in a cloud of dust and pollution, raising concerns about potential damage to the priceless relics and documents housed within. The solution was to install a state-of-the-art air purification system like those used for hospital operating rooms and high-tech manufacturing, providing positive air pressure in the building and a steady supply of super-purified air. Thus, despite the heavy dust, the pilgrim visits could continue, and the air quality inside the building was raised to a standard much higher than had existed even on the clearest days in the past. The range of activities taking place in such close proximity during this period is truly difficult to fathom. Heavy excavation and earthworks, building form work, concrete pouring at a rate of over 1,000 cubic yards per month, a tunnel to carry vehicles under Terrace 13 to reach the large underground parking area for the buildings on the west side of the Arc. The old bridge over Abbas Street was demolished and removed in a single evening, making way for a new structure. Miles and miles of piping, drains, and electrical conduit were going into precisely aligned positions, often to be sealed in concrete. Carved stone stairways, balustrades, urns, statuary, and fountains began to appear.
In our design, details are very important. The terraces, for example, are full of small details, very small details that maybe it will not be immediately noticed, but it adds a flavor, it adds fragrance, it touches the heart of, it makes us add to the story. For example, the trees from the house of the Bab on terrace number 9, or the color seasons that we have. We have a season, right now is red season. Then we have blue season, we have purple season. These together add flavor to the complex.
Landscaping commenced as one by one the terraces neared completion. Nurseries at the Temple Land, Rizwan Garden and Bahá'í were growing trees and other plants for the new gardens. An experimental garden was created, testing the suitability of a large range of plant species being considered for use on the terraces. Fiber optic cables were laid in trenches crossing the Arc gardens, providing the infrastructure for sophisticated control systems and an ultra-high-speed computer network. Construction professionals wondered how the Baha'i project team dared to simultaneously manage so many demanding and overlapping tasks on multiple fronts.
This project is very hard project, very difficult project, especially the plans of Mr. Sahba. It's very difficult plan. First time in my life I saw a work like this.
During this period, the Universal House of Justice intimated that there were divine deadlines to be met ere the close of the century. The staff of Mount Carmel projects took this call to heart and made superhuman sacrifices to achieve the goals. So rapid was the progress during these eventful years that the pace of the construction outstripped the flow of resources arriving from the Baha'i world community, creating a severe crisis for the projects and the International Baha'i Fund. The Universal House of Justice dispatched one of its members to Europe and America to acquaint the believers with the true nature of the situation.
$40 million needed course this final year of plan. Words are not enough. God is looking for deeds. And when you offer something and it's done with sacrifice, then it is accepted. Then he comes in and God enters his home. His home is my heart.
Baha'is of every race and nation arose to do their part, inspired by the vision of the projects and determined to do their share to present this gift to humanity ere the close of the 20th Gregorian century. The spirit of sacrifice that enabled the projects to go forward was not lost on those who worked on the projects.
All of us, and I was very close with many people here, which Baha'i and non-Baha'i, we all become more spiritual because nobody can say, I did this thing. It's too heavy for one human being or one person to carry it on his shoulder. Everyone say it's from God because everyone is individual. Nobody believe he could produce and he could make something like this. It was part of people and it was from God, only from God.
I don't believe that I myself alone, I do this project. It was something or somebody not from here, from outside the earth, helped me to make this project.
Hatzionat Avenue is a main thoroughfare for traffic on Mount Carmel. Phase 6 required lowering the roadway by 5 meters to accommodate the large bridge of Terrace 11. The excavation was managed in carefully planned steps, lowering the road lane by lane in order to keep traffic flowing through this vital transportation artery. Simultaneously, on the uphill side of the road, even more excavations were required, creating space for the new Office of Public Information, a large building tucked discreetly between terraces 10 and 11, with its entrance beneath the bridge. Phase 7, the construction of terraces 1 and 2, was delayed by 4 years of negotiations to acquire properties at the foot of the mountain needed for the entrance plaza. Ultimately, the land was cleared, and construction on the last phase of the Mount Carmel projects immediately began. It was the last major construction activity and served to link the terraces with the city projects on Ben Gurion Avenue and the Templar colony. In Israel, the reputation of the Baha'is for exacting quality is so well established that prospective contractors well understood that their work would have to meet and exceed the highest possible standards.
Before we start the job, we could feel that all this coordination between all these elements will be very, very sophisticated. You can imagine that everything is empty here. There is a huge crane standing here, lifting 15 tons of a precast to erect it on a very accurate place. The crane operator is an Arab Israeli guy. Our engineer, Russian Israeli engineer, standing here with an walkie-talkie, inspector of the Baha'is. A French guy is standing, pointing his finger up to try to direct him left and right. He's telling right, the Russian guy, our engineer, is telling left. And then to coordinate all of this together by language, by mental, by ideas, by execution of the work, all together has to come to the same point. The capital, the column, has to come to the same point on a stainless steel pin on a tolerance of 2 millimeters.
To avoid additional costs, the Mount Carmel Projects Office assumed the task of general contractor in large areas of the work, calling upon Baha'is in many countries to assist in identifying and procuring needed building materials. Every part of every design was rigorously scrutinized to see if more economical solutions could be found without compromising quality and high standards of work. This process of value engineering led to hundreds of design improvements, adding up to millions of dollars in savings.
The method of management that we used, project management that we used in this project, was just Baha'i method. We wanted to have access to the heart of our workers in a way that they think that this is my own work, my own project. They understand that how important it is, and also they understand the spiritual value of what they're doing.
It was true. I used to say to other people, play in a Muslim way, play it in a Christian way, play in a Jewish way to finish, to do those things. It was from the heart, all the work here, it was from the heart. We did it from the heart and the lead of God.
Day by day, month by month, the thousands of details were completed, and as the century drew towards a close, the projects, which just a few years earlier seemed all but impossible, moved towards a conclusion that now seemed inevitable. One by one, these new pavilions on the Ark were completed and occupied. The Center for the Study of the Texts exudes a special warmth and dignity. The circular portico cradles a sunken garden and central fountain, creating an atmosphere of cool tranquility and the endless interplay of light and shade. French stone walls, red granite floors, glass balustrades grace the entrance hall of this seat of an institution for Baha'i scholars.
You can see the building is against the mountain, half buried into the rock. And despite this situation, the light comes through the light wells we have provided to all the rooms of this building.
Next door, the Archives Extension Building is the working center for archival collection and preservation of the original tablets and sacred relics of the faith. Priceless originals are stored in a special strong room, designed to withstand natural disasters and to provide long-term protection from all manner of environmental hazards. These documents are made available as needed for research and scholarship. In the Office of Public Information, informative display areas greet the visitor, providing a suitable environment in which to welcome and inform visiting dignitaries, guests, and journalists. Underground parking areas serve the staff working in all the buildings. Beneath the 4 upper levels of the International Teaching Center are 5 floors of ancillary facilities, housing other offices, well-equipped cafeteria facilities, additional public spaces, and an elegant 400-seat auditorium, complete with balcony and modern sound, lighting, and multimedia projection facilities. The Continental Boards of Counselors and their auxiliary board members from 172 countries attended the devotional ceremonies marking the occupation by the Teaching Center of its permanent seat. This distinctive structure faces the Shrine of the Bab, providing a befitting home for the institution of the counselors, the arm of the Baha'i administrative order that extends into the future the functions originally exercised by the hands of the cause of God regarding the protection and propagation of the faith. The semicircular structure, adorned with Italian piastrone marble columns and simple Ionic capitals, houses the offices and the meeting room of the counselor members of the Teaching Center.
When you enter the entrance hall of the building, you see the skylight above, which has a pattern inspired by the Persian architecture, a theme that you somehow find in all 3 of these major buildings. And all around the hall, they have the rooms of the counselors, and above you have the library. And the library has a vault at the top, which is the distinctive feature of this building. Each of these buildings have a distinctive feature, and they have their own character, but they are all harmonizing.
Together, these buildings house the world administrative institutions of the Baha'i faith. When viewed against the great stretches of time over which religious history has unfolded, these institutions, like the construction projects themselves, have blossomed and developed with lightning speed. Completion of these projects at the turn of the century is in itself a powerful testament to the emerging maturity of the national and local institutions of the faith of Baha'u'llah, and a major step in the consolidation of its administrative order. Unique in its organization and institutional structure, unique in the rapidity of its spread around the globe, and unique in the conjoining of its spiritual and administrative centers, the faith of Baha'u'llah has transformed the outer face of Mount Carmel just as it has transformed the inner and outer life of a diverse yet closely knit global community of faith. The Baha'is of the world can be justifiably proud of this fruit of their perseverance and sacrifice. By day, the terraces are a sea of color. At night, 2,000 lights memorialize the suffering of the Bab in the dark prison cell of Maku. This entire mountain now beckons humanity to investigate the spirit which emanates from this beauteous place. Climbing the terraces to the shrine of the Bab cannot but invoke reverence and respect for the one referred to as the primal point of the new revelation. This shrine, housing the sacred remains of the Bab, is a place of pilgrimage, the attainment of which is longed for by every Baha'i.
I wanted to create a space that when people are walking through it, they feel they're going to the holy presence of the Bab, the very center, the spiritual heart of the world.
Boy, that's going to be quite a climb in the future. But it's the way of the kings. According to Abdu'l-Baha, they would come barefooted and bareheaded from the foot of the mountain to visit this shrine. And that's the way the Baha'is will come in the future.
I didn't want to fight against the mountain, but to work with the natural landscape. We have done something which flow like a stream of water from the top to the bottom of the mountain. And as you go toward the shrine, all the lines, rhythm, colors of landscape invite you, direct you to the center of the 9 concentric circle, which is the shrine of the Bab.
And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths.
Carmel in the book of God hath been designated as the hill of God, as his vineyard. It is here that by the grace of the Lord of Revelation, the tabernacle of glory hath been raised. Happy are they that attain thereunto. Happy they that set their faces towards it.